In the spirit of Halloween, paranormal or not, what is the scariest, creepiest or most unsettling experience of your life? Buddies and I were doing a page out of Weird NJ and tried Clinton Road in West Milford because it was something relatively easy to do at night. It's a small, narrow road that winds back and forth alongside a reservoir in a hilly, fairly rural area. We'd read the creepy stories of stuff that supposedly went on there, like the ghost boy, the unearthly animals, the KKK meetings, and the creepy cross castle, but we were all in college and relatively skeptical of such things. We were just hoping for a bit of creepy feels and having fun hanging out. The ride north on the road felt a bit creepy, what with it being a dark, narrow, winding road, but we didn't see anything unsettling. When we got to the end we realized the most direct way to get back home was to turn around and go back to Route 23. About 1/3 of the way in, a pair of headlights appeared close behind our car and were accelerating. This was during a fairly straight stretch of the road, and these headlights appeared much closer than if they'd rounded the last corner we had. The headlights got right up on our bumper, very bright in contrast to the darkness of the road. It felt extremely menacing. I was in the back seat of the car and was terrified to turn around. I didn't want to know if the headlights were anything unnatural. All of a sudden, the headlights cut out. I turned around immediately to see what I could see. There was no light indicating a car had turned and the headlights were shining in another direction. I thought maybe the car was still following us with its lights off or had turned slightly off the road, not that there were any real places to do so on the narrow forested road. I saw no car anywhere. Despite the narrow road, we booked it the fuck out of there. My rational mind tells me it was just locals fucking with us, but I still don't know how they made it so I couldn't see any trace of a vehicle when I turned around. Spookiest thing I've ever witnessed. My grandmother was a wonderful person, but deeply influenced in her youth by the Lindbergh kidnapping. Subsequently there were outer doors and inner doors and locks. The summer after she died I went up to the family cottage by myself. Cousins and siblings had been up earlier to clean out her bedroom of personal stuff, etc. One night I went into the kitchen to get a glass of milk and a snack. A wave of sadness hit and I said out loud, "Oh Gram, I love you and miss you so." Then I laughed a little and said, "But, sorry, I am enjoying this cross breeze, so I am leaving the inner door out to the porch open, and someone disabled this lock anyway." I went upstairs to read. After about an hour I decided to take the plate and glass back down to the kitchen. The inner door was not only firmly shut, the iron stopper removed, but the locking mechanism that had been on a shelf near the door was screwed back in place. I stood there for a minute, totally freaked out. There was no way someone could have come in. It is a summer place, not well insulated. You can hear when doors and windows are being opened or closed. No logical or scientific explanation for it. I really wish there was one. I finally said, "Okay then, grandmother." Message received. "If you want this door shut and locked at night, that is what I will do. Promise." TL, Doctor, family matriarch still rules the roost, even from the great beyond. My mother lives way out in the country, outside a little town of 300 people. There's this stretch of road that's just flat and long and empty. At night it's like it never ends. On one visit I was leaving her house at 1 or 2 in the morning, heading back home, had a morning flight, my vacation. Anyway, I'm driving on this long stretch of road and suddenly I see a person in the middle of the road. It happened so fast. I didn't have time to serve or anything, I just slammed the brakes. No thud. No sound. Nothing but skidding to a stop. Even though I didn't hear any thud, I was still certain I hit someone. I saw his face. I looked in his eyes. I got out of my car and looked. No marks on the car. Nothing on the road. I even walked back a ways. And there was nothing. Even though I was completely alone, I had a sudden frightened feeling, like something was wrong. I ran, literally ran, back to the car. Got in and drove away. I don't know if I saw a ghost or something else. I know that it was real. I know that it terrified me. My brother passed away in 2013. For nearly 2 years after that I would get calls from his number, which I still had saved in my phone. The first time it happened, I was so shocked that I couldn't even answer. The second time, not long after, I answered. The other side was dead silent, no digital or vocal sound whatsoever, silence. Many months later, it happened again, but this time I heard what sounded like struggling, like someone was pushing and shoving someone else with the phone in hand. At this point, I called AT&T to see what was up. I explained the situation, and knowing that, the rep checked on the information for the number. After we disconnected it, it had been reassigned as a data-only device. To this day, I don't know what it was. His name was Aaron, and I miss him dearly, so I just like to think he was checking in on me. Love you, bro. When I was in the 5th grade, my family moved to a new town, and we were told by the realtor that the selling family, an older couple, had lost their child in the 60s in that house. The mother had some mental issues throughout her life and was absolutely serious that the ghost of her daughter was living in the house. She had at one point, apparently, burned all the curtains in the house in the fireplace because she thought her daughter was living there. When we moved in, we spent the first week or so removing padlocks off of every door, 5 or 6 of them even on some asinine doors like a broom closet or something. It was ridiculous. The closet for my room had a door that led up to the attic, and little 5th grader me went to bed one night and I woke up to footsteps coming slowly down the stairs. I, of course, threw the bed sheets over my head knowing that this was next level tech for ghost deflection, but I could hear through the closet door a knocking at the door that led to the attic. It knocked once, twice, 3 times, each getting louder. I was shaking, I was so scared, but it stopped. There were no steps going back up, and I didn't hear the knocks again for the rest of the night. My sister, in her room, has a large vanity mirror that faces out towards the hallway, and she would brush her hair there, and she swears that, at times, she could see a white wisp of what looks like a dress or something coming out of my room and down, then rushes down the stairs. My mother would occasionally feel cold rushes whenever she was cooking, but my father never experienced anything like what we had. As my sister and I grew up, the occurrences happened less and less, and by the time we were both 18 they stopped altogether. Every time I go back and visit my folks, I ask how the ghost is doing, and we have a good laugh and say she's been quiet. My mother has come to think that if it was the ghost of this woman's daughter, that she would only interact with me and my sister because we were kids about the same age as she was when she died, and now that we're older she wants nothing to do with us. When my cat is at my folks' house, every once in a while she looks straight up into the hallway looking at something big-eyed for no reason at all. Or maybe this happened as an adult, and I don't believe in the paranormal or witchcraft etc. I had been dating a girl for a long time, 4 years or so, and everything was normal. I remember whispers that she and her father were into witchcraft etc. When I questioned her about it, she kinda blew it off, mentioned something to the effect of all he can do is make clouds move momentarily on rainy days etc. It's more about controlling the physical environment through meditation. I can respect that. There's some quantum level that science doesn't understand, and we're just now scratching the surface as to the power of thoughts, so in the spirit of what the bleep do we know, it isn't crazy to think. So here's the story, I'll never forget it. Girlfriend gets hammered. Once she's finished puking, I get her into my Chev van to take her home. She's mostly passed out in the passenger seat, slumped forward, incoherent, barely responsive. I'm doing 130 km/h on the freeway in a 100 km/h when, as if someone else lifted up her head, turns to me and speaks perfectly, only it was her father's voice coming out of her mouth. He said, "Psk because someone put something in your van and you need to remove it when you get home. Also, slow down, there is a speed trap up ahead," and then she just passed out again. I slowed down, sure enough, a speed trap. She has no recollection of it. It more or less scared me out of the relationship with her, and I was too afraid to even mention it to her father. And the thing I found in the van, it looked like a bird's nest, but there was some cloth inside and it had been woven over with sticks, if that makes any sense. Still creeps me the fuck out to this day when I think about it, and that was 15 years ago. This happened about 5 or 6 years ago. I was visiting at my aunt's house for a few days out in the very small community of Calling Lake in northern Alberta. Her block was fairly new at the time and still in development. Basically it was a row of trailers and modular homes, then a road, then bush. Her trailer was next to an empty lot, which was next to the bush. It's a very rural place, there is almost no light pollution here, so it was pretty dark. I took my dog outside one night and was just waiting around for her to finish. She wandered off behind the house, so I started walking over there calling her name. As I walked I could see a small, black mass in the open lot, but it was so dark I couldn't tell what it was. It looked very out of place. As I got to the corner of the house, the mass slowly stood up, and took the shape of a very tall humanoid figure, easily 8 feet tall, with a short body, but long legs and long arms. I could feel this thing looking at me. I backed away and went up the front steps and reached for the door, but it didn't turn. Somebody fucking locked it. I banged away for someone to let me in, all while keeping my eyes on this thing standing just 40 feet away. Finally the door opens and I stumble back into the house. I yelled, "There's something standing in the field." We went back out, but this thing was gone. Then my dog came back around the house and came inside. A lot of weird shit happens in Calling Lake. I've had other strange experiences and have heard others' experiences as well. It's a small Aboriginal community right next to a reserve.